I'm Dr. Carol Francis. This is course number 2, which is all about the 12 R's. This is the second class, which is about the R. Rescue is an important process when you're suddenly feeling very vulnerable. And that vulnerability, that at risk, that lack of safety, that wish to retreat, that feeling of, uh-oh, something ominous is going to happen, may be nothing more than you having a memory, a flashback, a nightmare that's somehow being transplanted on the current moment that you're experiencing. But you don't know for sure because your intuition your senses have now been colored, possibly confused because of what you went through with your abuse and trauma. It becomes a little bit hard to discern when there really is a difficulty, when your body is still responding to so many things that are neutral as if they are not neutral. Again, this is a natural response that occurs when you have a post-traumatic response reaction to trauma and abuse. And that's that sense of foreboding, something's going to happen, that feeling that it's on the edge. Oh no, here it's going to come again. You have been conditioned either by the traumatic moment or by a succession of events to feel like, uh-oh, the foreboding, something's going to happen. And you don't even necessarily know. One of the examples in my book, Paths to Recovery After Abuse and Trauma, is a woman named Cindy. Now remember, I never talk about my patients, so this is not a patient. Cindy was married to a really fine and wonderful person, but this was her second husband. And her first husband was incredibly abusive to her, very disrespectful. And anytime she would voice a dissension or an opinion or a disagreement, he would whack her and bruise her and potentially break bones, definitely thrash the house, just intimidating her to never disagree with him, and never voice her opinion. She got so conditioned by this after many, many years that she didn't even know what her opinions were. And part of her recovery was to have opinions. So in the process of that, after many years of recovery, she married an absolutely wonderful individual. And this wonderful individual was not perfect, and they would have their conflicts and their disagreements and their arguments, as all couples do. But that's a different series, right? So he would bring up something and she would disagree. And as soon as she would disagree, because she had learned to have an opinion, she would just feel like, uh-oh, I should never do that. He's going to harm me. And the he in her anatomy, in her brain, in her memory was her first husband, not her second husband. But that was the he that she was transplanting into the moment. We call it projection. And so she's projecting this into the moment, and they had learned in couples therapy how to deal with these events where he would say, you know what, I'm not him. It's okay for you to disagree with me. We are having a disagreement. We're having a conflict. And I want to hear your opinion. It doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily agree with it, but I want to hear your opinion. It's fine for us to disagree. It's even fine for us to feel a little irritated with each other, or a little miffed, or a little, oh, this is so complicated, because that's part of a healthy relationship. And it's about you being you and healthy, and me being me and healthy as well. So when the husband learns to say those sorts of things, and when Cindy learns to say those sorts of things to herself as well, that's when she's able to take those, uh-oh, I'm going to get walloped. This is one of those horrible foreboding moments. That's when she begins to go, oh, wait a minute, I'm not there anymore. So I call that a form of not only remembering and moving yourself into the present, which was the first R, but also rescuing. It's rescuing yourself out of the previous experience and catapulting yourself into, oh, I'm here, I'm not there. So you remind, I'm here, I'm not there. You rescue yourself to remember that you're here and this is safe. Rescue from that horrible, unsafe situation and become present into this safe situation, which is different. And you talk to yourself very much the way I illustrated Cindy's husband talking. You talk to yourself. You remind yourself, oh, it's okay. I've learned this. This is what I have learned. This is how I've been recovering. This is part of my process. I've transformed this. I have a better situation. You're talking to yourself. You're rescuing yourself. And I often say, talk out loud at these moments so that you can hear yourself. The auditory brain is very connected to all sorts of different parts of your emotional wiring. and hear yourself. You're voicing it out loud, which is another way it's wired in there. And then you begin to talk to yourself gently, very much like a mother would say after a good mother would say after someone had injured themselves, it's okay, you're going to be okay, we're going to take care of this. You're doing that kind of self-soothing. It's a form of rescuing yourself. Another way I want you to think about rescuing is this. There may be these moments where there's something that's quite upsetting happening. And you at that moment need to say, I've learned how to respond to this differently because I took that martial arts class and I drilled it into me how to kick and scream and fight back or whatever is the best way to handle this moment. Or I've learned how to run out of a building that's on fire and how to get the team on task. I've learned how to deal with emergencies in ways that are different than just freezing and staying stuck inside the emergency to get further harmed. So that's another way of rescuing yourself is I have learned, and you begin to, either in the moment that is a crisis, count what resources you have developed since your abuse and trauma, which is another way of recognizing that you need to develop those resourcefulness skills, those resourceful skills after you recovered, to build up the repertoire inside of you of how to respond in emergency situations. Repertoire is another R word, not one of these 12s, but again, it's a repertoire of my ability to rescue myself. So that's another way I want you to look at the whole R, is to learn how you're going to rescue yourself because you learn the skills you're going to need in case it ever happens. The third way I want you to rescue yourself is to practice whenever you have these horrific imaginings that just flash inside you. As soon as you can, summons yourself back to being in your body and being in your moment. Before you go on with your day, take that horrible imagining and write a better ending to it. And so let me give you an example. So we'll take those individuals that suffered the van actually, that was driving on the sidewalk and killing and injuring. I think there were 22 people that were very involved in this in Toronto. And there are a lot of such events like this, right? So I want you to imagine for a moment that you flash back into that experience. It was awful. And you're just happen to be walking along the road, but you had this flashback. In that moment, as soon as you can wake yourself up, go, you know what? Where am I at? Okay, you know what? I can run down that alley. And so actually physically go run down the alley just to tell your body that we know how we can get out of this bad situation. Or we can turn and look at the cars and the vehicles. Is there any danger going on here? And so that we can look for where we can hide as well. Where are the cars? Where can I hide? So you are practicing rescue whenever you have that startle reaction. As soon as you can move yourself into, oh, I'm not there. But what would I do if something bad did happen in this moment? Well, I'd run over there and I'd look for the cars and I'd look for the police. I mean, whatever it is you would do in that moment is practicing the rescue response. As you become aware how good you are at practicing the rescue responses, you'll begin to be able to rely on yourself. And you begin to feel like in case of emergency, you're going to be okay. Right? We don't all know, but that's the more likely case scenario. And you take these horrific images, imaginings. I wrote a chapter called Horrific Imaginings about parents who are new parents, and they just go into these horrible moments of what they think is the worst thing that could happen in that moment, and then they wake up and they realize none of it's taking place. But they are practicing what they would do in case something horrible was happening to their children. And it's that same way. You go into that horrible moment. As soon as you're able to come out of it, you practice how you would address that imagining in a responsive, rescuing fashion. Okay, continue with the exercises here, and I'll see you in class number 3. Bye.